Hello there. Hello there. Today we're going to talk a little bit about business planning. When we look at, I suppose, from an aspect of business planning, we all should have a plan and we all should be monitoring how our business is working or how it's engaging or how its performance is, but we all tend not to do so. But there are ways that you can do it, and there are, I suppose, other ways you can implement the best way to do it. And I suppose the first thing is to start off by having your goals. What are your goals for your actual business? Because when we look at, there may be about 10 aspects to it. And when we look at each one in its context, we can see that it's vitally important. But again, as I said, we tend not to do it. So let's look at number one, which is what I'd say is your goals. Are you doing your top 10 goals? Are you making a list of the top 10 goals that you want to achieve within your business, maybe before the end of the year? And these could be personal and professional, because sometimes you have to achieve a professional goal to get a personal goal, and sometimes you've got to achieve a personal goal to get a professional goal. The next one we look at then is the actual business goals themselves. We need to make sure that that could be revenue orientated, it could be client orientated, so how many clients you need or how much revenue you need to make, or it could be a combination of both to make them coincide with each other. The next one then we look is our yearly goals. So we've got to look at what do we expect by the end of the year, what we intend to do by the end of the year. Now, the problem with yearly goals is that people tend to make them, but they tend to also break them, or they never fulfill them. And it's because sometimes they think they make the goal too big, and then when they don't start to work towards it or they don't start achieving it, they forget about it and they move on and they forget about it. But I suppose the key element here to yearly goals is that you do pick something that you think you're not going to get. You do pick something that's way out there, and then you work backwards from that. So you almost start with the yearly goals and then you work on the weekly or monthly goals to achieve that bigger goal. Then we'll move on to our weekly planner. So again, this is why when we talk about our goals, what is it that you plan to do in that particular week that's going to get you towards the monthly goal? And if you start achieving or working towards the monthly goal, well, then you're going to achieve and start working towards the yearly goal. Then we move on to our daily planner. So what is it that you're going to do per day? That's going to get you to the weekly goal and hence get you to the monthly goal and hence get you to the yearly goal. Because whilst this might seem like a lot of work and a lot of effort, it's vitally important because it's what will bring you closer. When we start to look at our weekly goals and when we start to look at our monthly or daily goals, we're actually setting ourselves up for the actionable steps that are required to bring us closer. Now, there is another key element to all our goal setting and setting up our weekly planners and daily planners and monthly planners and yearly planners. And that is that having somebody to help us, or having somebody that's going to give us a little bit of a nudge, like somebody that's going to be accountable to you. Because when somebody is accountable, you'll tend to do it. If there's nobody accountable, well then procrastination sets in. And sometimes we'll find something else to do instead of doing what we should be doing to get us towards the goal. The next report we're talking about then is monthly sales. So what type of monthly sales do you expect? What type of monthly sales and revenue would you hope to achieve? How are you going to achieve the monthly sales? Then we'll move on to our yearly report, and this is like a profit report. So it's based on the sales. When you achieve the sales, what type of profits are you going to get from them? And this is something where we need to list down our costs for our business, our costs for our products, our costs for our services. Costs for everything have to be included. And then, of course, you can work out the element of what the profit is. Because let's face it, we're all in business to make profit. If you're not making profit, you're not making any money, and therefore you can't be in business. But if you plan it, as what we've just spoke about here from the offset, well then you can find a way to make sure that you start making money and become into profits. The last one we'll talk about then is advertising. So you need to draw up a report on advertising, where you're going to advertise, how you're going to advertise, and how much budget you have to advertise. Because I see it every day where I talk to coaches, business owners, consultants, bricks and mortar businesses, and they tell me about, something that they have been advised to do, and they put a chunk of money into it to not find they get the results from it. And that is because that they haven't planned it correctly. You need to know the numbers. You need to know what it is that you're going to get out of the end of it. What is the end result going to be? It's no good looking at somebody else and saying, well, look, they did a webinar or they did a product launch and they sold 1,000 products, by advertising on Facebook. Because that might be different for you. Why? Because you may be a different product, you may be a different service, you may be a different entity in its entirety. So you've got to watch out, or you've got to look for the different elements of what it is. And by doing so, you come back to your advertising tracker, your advertising cost, or your advertising planner. You're looking at the cost element to you and what the percentage of profit is going to be at the end of it. So I hope you found this useful. We've gone from starting with your goals right up to looking at your advertising costs. And this is something that should be done on a regular basis for any business owner. It is a pain, but it has to be done because it gives you clarity and avoids the confusion. If this is something that someone needs help with, well, this is what I do every day. Please do reach out, send me a direct message or put a link down below and say I'm in, and I'll make contact with you. So if this is of interest to you, put a link below. Take care.